Hey, good morning. We're here with the Maximum Mom podcast, and I am here with Carol Williams this morning. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
And I have to just apologize to everyone. Obviously, I'm outside. We have contractors like just absolutely making more noise than I thought was possible. I was like, oh, I'm sure I can just ignore your noise. It'll be fine. And after I was on an interview with somebody and he was like, what is that? I'm like, that would be the drill. I think they're ripping out cabinets. It's like one of those movies where they're just like destroying things, having too much fun, I think.
That's fine. I can't hear any of that. So wherever you are is working.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Well, I'm so glad you joined me today. I really appreciate you being here with me.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. Well, I always like to start. Tell us about your family. Who are you living with?
Sure.
Where do you live? And we'll start there.
So I am currently in sunny South Florida, where I want to be for the rest of my life, which is a big thing for me to say because I've moved a lot. I live with my husband and my mom, and my dad and my brother, who I'm both super close with, live in New Jersey. So I haven't seen them in a little over a year, but they are definitely part of my close-knit little fam. So yeah.
Wow, that's far away. Now, did you live in New Jersey as well at some point?
No, I've never lived in New Jersey. My brother and I are best friends, and we've always joked that no city or state could ever really handle us living together like that. Like they just wouldn't really be able to handle it. Because we are a ton of fun and a hot mess when we're together. So I've never lived in New Jersey. But so we grew up in Connecticut. He is in Jersey because he went to college in New Jersey.
Oh.
And then did a brief stint down here in Florida and then went back up to like the Jersey, New York area. So he's a real estate agent in New York City.
Cool.
So
That's
he's in
awesome.
New Jersey. Mm-hmm.
Now, is he older or younger than you?
He is absolutely older, but I am way cuter. That's what I like to say. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, he's older, but yeah, we're 5 years apart, but he is my best friend on the planet. So.
Oh, that's so lucky. I just love that. I think the sibling relationship is such an amazing one. I mean, I have worked so hard to encourage my kids to understand the importance of that and, really having each other's backs through the years. And I love seeing them, do things together. I just think the sibling relationship, you share such history. I mean, that nobody else gets,
My parents always told us whenever we were bickering over, like a toy or what to watch on the television, my mom was like, listen, either you two figure it out or I'm going to figure it out for you. She's like, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be you two against the world. Yep. So figure it out so I don't have to do it for you. And we were like, oh, and I was like, okay, I win. We're watching Sesame Street, like whatever it was. I win.
I love that. But I think your mom is dead on.
Yeah.
I think that it is. I mean, siblings, you think of, I know in my work, I mean, I see siblings come together dealing with family law issues or estate planning. And I mean, it truly is them against the world, or them figuring out how are we going to care for our parents or what are we going to do? And those families where the siblings just don't get along, it's one of the sadder things to watch. These destructive kind of relationships go down and you're like, ugh, something went awry during those Sesame Street battles because this is not how it should look.
No, that's true. But yeah, I can't, like, we've always been close. Like, I can't really, like, we never had a period of time where we didn't get along or where we didn't talk or anything. Like, I remember calling him from high school because I was in a boarding school. I remember calling him and telling him that I got into college and he said, hold, please, I need to put the phone down. And he put the phone down and then he came back like 5 minutes later and I was like, are you done? And he goes, I had to do my happy dance. So like, we've just always been super close. He drove up from Jersey to Connecticut, then drove back to Philly so that I could see the school. And stay, he had friends in the area. He's like, well, I don't need to see you, for the weekend or whatever. So he dropped me off with a girlfriend who had been in my high school. the year before. She was a year ahead of me. And so I hung out with her and saw the school all weekend. He was with another friend, like, and I saw him again when he picked me up and dropped me back off at school.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so, it's so lucky. Well, I can't wait for you to be able to see your father and your brother
I
soon,
can't wait.
hopefully.
I literally can't wait. And my dad is super, super particular. He doesn't really like anybody else cutting his hair but me. But mind you, I've never lived in New Jersey. So when I lived in DC and Virginia area, I would drive up
Right.
at least once a month, and and then I'd cut his hair and stuff. So now he's had to have a few other people cut his hair. And let me tell you, he's none too pleased about that.
I bet. Well, you're going to go up and you're going to hear an earful about his hair,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sure.
Oh, yes. But
Well,
that's all
you're
right.
going to have to give him like the premiere cut of his life.
Well,
you
and I
know?
keep telling him, I was like, Dad, because because we can FaceTime or whatever. And I was like, Dad, your
Yeah.
hair's getting long. He's like, I know. I was like, okay. I'm not, when I come up there, that's the first thing I'll handle. So yeah. We're
I
all
love
super
that.
close. We're
That's
super close.
awesome. Well, tell us about your practice as well. I mean, I know you have a robust immigration practice.
Yeah. So I've been practicing for over 20 years, like 22, maybe 23. I don't math. That's why I went to law school.
Right.
It's like 22 or 23 years. But I started my own firm a little over 8 years ago. And I have only ever practiced immigration.
Oh,
Right out of law school, I figured out when I was in law school that I wanted to practice immigration. I went in knowing
wow.
that I was going to be a criminal lawyer. And I hated criminal law and I hated evidence. And I was lost for like probably a semester and a half, because I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 7. And so then to get to law school and like absolutely hate the 2 classes that I thought were like going to be these amazing classes,
Right.
I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do now? And I took a break and I went to Mexico for the summer and I took one class and it was immigration and I fell in love. Like
Wow.
it married everything I loved. It was, I could talk with people about their culture. I could talk about travel. I could talk about being in a different country, and I could help people and I could explain the law to them. So I got back to school, decided that I wanted to be in the immigration clinic, which was a year-long clinic, but I was already signed up for a clinic that fall semester. And so a good friend of mine, we were in our first year section together. We sat next together for torts, which was our very first law school class. She was in the clinic and I said, how do I get in? So she did a little bit of snooping and sniffing around and she said, you have to get to know the professor. And I said, done. And then she said, and somebody has to drop out. I said, it'll happen. I'm not even worried about it. So I got to know the professor. I weaseled my way into his heart. And then she came and told me, hey, someone's leaving. There's going to be an opening. So I rolled into his office and I said, hey, and he goes, hey, Carl, what are you doing? And I said, you have an opening in your clinic and I want it. And he's like, I do not have an opening. I said, you do, you just don't know about it yet. I said, but I want it. And he's like, Carol, that's not how this works. And I was like, it's how it's going to work today because I want it. I said, this is what I want to do. And he's like, but that's not how this works. And I was like, it is. And you have an opening and I'm going to go now. I'm going to give you time to think about this.
Give you your space.
Right. I'm just going to let you think about this. Then I went back like the next day or the day after that. And I was like, so he's like, it's yours, Carol. It's yours. So honestly, he has been, and I say that because he has been my mentor and now my friend since literally that day. Like
That's
he has been
amazing.
an amazing champion of my career. I've not made a career move without him. I got my first couple of jobs out of law school because of him. And so now that I have my own firm, there are things that I do today that are a direct result of the way that he taught me in that clinic for one semester and the way that he has supported me and taught me since.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he and I've met his wife. They're just amazing, like amazing advocates and coaches and mentors. He's amazing. So I really wouldn't have my firm or be confident in the way that I practice just in some of the mechanics and the logistics if it weren't for what he taught us and well taught me in that semester, because everybody else was there for the full year. And so so I have my own firm. I have only ever done immigration. I've never dabbled with anything else. And I never envisioned being 20 years into a career in the law. Like I knew when I went to law school, I was going to be a criminal lawyer for maybe like 10 years. And then I was going to own a travel agency because I love to travel. Like I had this whole plan, and it did not include practicing law for the rest of my life. Like day one of law school, I was like, I'm in this for like 10 years, y'all. Like this is okay. And then I just I hit 10 years and I was like, oh, whatever, I still like it. And then the internet kind of blew up. And then the whole travel agency thing, there aren't as many.
Right.
And so I was like, I like what I do. No, I actually love what I do. I'll stick with this and we'll see. I'm still here and I love it.
Wild.
It is, one of my attorneys, she recently left me, and I am, as I say, 1,010% happy for her and 110% sad for me.
Right.
I think it was an amazing move that she made. And she said to me, she said, so if you ever want a job where I'm going, I'm pretty sure they'll hire you because I just talked about you during my interview. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool,
Well, but it also tells me, I mean, you listen to what you learned from your mentor. And just since you and I have been on the phone, I mean, you have a mentee who's in the military and you have this person who you have worked with who obviously thought of you in such a mentoring role. I mean, it's interesting, you have a really strong mentor-mentee mentality around who you are and how you show up in the world. I think it's fascinating.
I do. And, I think I got that from my parents, honestly. They both grew up in the segregated South. And so my brother and I grew up in, they moved up to Connecticut. And so that's where my brother and I were born and raised. So my brother and I are New Englanders, basically through and through.
Right.
But my parents are very, very Southern. And so there were all these stories that we heard about their childhood experiences and what happened when they went to college. And I think when I sort of unpack that all, it was a sense of family and a sense of community that got everybody through. And so whether that family and community were blood related or not, they were people that you knew you could rely on and that only had your best interest at heart and were going to help you get to whatever that next phase was for you. And, they never said those words specifically to me, but when I think about everything that they've always told my brother and I, it was this big sense of community. And, when my parents grew up around extended family, my brother and I didn't because my parents had moved up north. And so, we, I think as a family unit, were even closer, because it was just us, and so, I always joke around, I'm a member of a sorority, and those are my sisters, and I love that because I didn't grow up with biological sisters, but there are women out there who want me to succeed and I want them to succeed. And we push one another just as much as my biological brother pushes me, to do well. And it's this sense of community that has been instilled in us since we were young.
That's amazing.
And so, so I love kind of bringing people into that, and I tell my friends, I'm like, listen, once you enter my orbit, I don't let you go.
But that is so powerful. I mean, you think about the deep relationships you develop in your orbit. I mean, those relationships are life-changing because they are so deep and meaningful. I mean, I can just hear it and feel it in what you do
Yeah.
when you think about how you relate to your father. And I mean,
Mhm.
something as intimate as cutting somebody's hair. I mean, that's a, a pretty intimate act that, he trusts you to do and
Mhm.
really looks to you for. And I can only imagine like what this lawyer felt like working with you, and how, and just listening to you see joy and positivity in her leaving. While of course it made you sad. I don't mean to
So
diminish.
sad, so sad,
Yeah,
so sad.
I don't mean to diminish the sadness at
So
all.
sad.
But
It
you
just,
also knowing it was a good
yeah,
move for her.
I think it's a fantastic move for her. And like, I'm
Yeah,
really like excited for her. And I told her, I was like, listen, just because we don't work together anymore doesn't mean that you can't call me if you have questions.
totally.
Like, if you've researched and you just can't figure it out, just call me. Like I don't just drop off the face of the earth,
Right.
And she was really stunned by that. And I was like, I don't listen. I was like, I don't know who you're used to being around, but I do not work like that. So
Oh,
just,
I wish
just
we could
call me.
spread that secret sauce everywhere, though. Like
Yeah.
when people are getting so angry at the people that leave and they're, and I'm like, I mean, unless they're doing something horrible in the
Yeah.
leaving, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
a lot of times it's a positive move, I think, for
Mhm.
people to be,
Yeah.
going someplace else, maybe trying a different area of the law, all kinds of
Yeah.
different things. I mean,
Yeah.
and I want to be that person that helps my people who are
Yeah.
leaving. And
Yeah.
how can I support them in their next adventure,
And I've always had, I would say the majority of supervisors that I've had, I still keep in touch with.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
they were always so supportive
Right.
of my next move. Always so
Yeah.
supportive of my next move. Even when my next move was to quit and not work and just to backpack around the world for a year. So that
Wow.
supervisor she was like, really, Carol? And I was like, yeah, I just,
Really.
I got to do it. And she's like, all right. And that is actually why I got hired by another firm when I got back. He said, he's like, I think it was maybe like, we were like a week or so in. And he said, one of the major reasons I hired you was because you took a year off and you just traveled and you did what you wanted to do. And I
That's it.
said, just remember that when I tell you I'm going on vacation.
Right.
But yeah, and we're like, he and I, we still talk. Like we still hang out. And he's down here in Miami and, we hang out.
Right.
We go to lunch, we talk, we call one another if we, have questions about cases. And it's just a great way, I think, to leave one role and move to the next role.
Totally.
And in a sense, you bring those people with you and you
Yep.
bring that encouragement and their knowledge and you just continue to share it out, you know?
Absolutely.
So
I mean, both sides of that equation have to be kind of emotionally intelligent enough and
yeah.
secure enough to do that. I mean, I love hearing about backpacking around the world. You're going to have to tell us about that. I mean, where did you go? How did you determine this? Like, how did you do? Give us all the details on that. There's people
So
that are dying to do this.
one of my sorority sisters from undergrad, her best friend, had gotten back from her around the world trip. And my sorority sister was telling me about her best friend's experience. And I was like, huh, kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
Kind of like that idea a lot. So I kind of let it float in my head for a little bit. Then I went up to New Jersey. I saw my brother. And he would give me a set of keys like Friday night or Thursday night whenever I got there. And I didn't really see him until Sunday. Sundays when we had brunch, and then I'd get back on the train and go home. So Sunday over brunch, I was like, hey, I have an idea. He's like, okay, what is it now? And I was like, so I think I want to just take a year off and go backpacking. He's like, oh, well, it's about time. I've been waiting for you to tell me this. And I was like, really? You have? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay. Because prior to that, I had studied abroad in Spain and I had studied abroad in Mexico for law school for part of that summer during law school. And then I had gone back to Mexico every year after that
Oh,
and just traveled around and whatever.
right.
And so, um, he said, okay, yeah, that's cool. So I kind of didn't believe him, but I kind of did. So the next weekend I showed up on his doorstep unannounced and he was like, hey, and I was like, so I just need to see the whites of your eyes again. I need to have this conversation all over again. And he's like, okay. And I was like, but we're not going to have it till Sunday because I've already made plans with my other friends in the city. He's like, of course you have. He's like, here are your keys. I will see you on Sunday. So we had a long conversation on Sunday over brunch. And I said, all right, I'm doing it. And then there was a map, there was a store at my very first job out of college, or out of law school rather. Right as I got off the metro, that all they sold was maps and globes. And I'd never been in there before, but I was like, I need a big map to just
Yeah.
spread out on the floor and some push pins. So I go into the city, and I go there and I get a map. And I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. And I think the reason I noticed that story years before was because I was going on this trip. I just didn't
Totally.
know it at the time. So I get the map, I roll it out on the floor, and I just put push pins in every city, every country I've ever heard of. Like it didn't matter how I'd heard of it. I just put the push pins in. And it was a couple of months of planning. I was saving for a house at the time. My real estate agent called me and she had a house that was like $30,000 over what I wanted to spend. And I was like, we're not doing this. You're fired and goodbye. And then I was like, right? I was like, you're fired and goodbye. And then I used my down payment money, added
That's
more to
perfect.
that, and then set a budget of $65 a day. And then I had a separate pot of money that would get me from country to country.
Right.
And then I had a separate pot of money that I would use when I got back home. So the money that was for when I got back home, I didn't have access to it. Like, I don't care what emergency happened, there was no way that I could access it. So I didn't dip into it. So I, put my stuff in storage and moved out of my apartment and quit my job and did all that. And then I went back up to Jersey with one big backpack. It was like 50 kilos because that was the limit, and a whole bunch of guidebooks. I left some of the guidebooks in my brother's place because he was going to come visit me in Europe. And then I got on the plane from Newark.
Wow.
I got on a plane from Newark. I had my guidebooks for South America, and I found a travel agent out of San Francisco. I think they were in San Francisco. My memories, I know they were in California, but I think they were in San Francisco. And so their minimum booking was 2 continents, 4 cities. So my first booking was Newark to Ecuador, and then Sao Paulo, Brazil, up to London.
Wow.
And so I just knew that I was dropping in Ecuador on day 1. And then by day whatever of my ticket, I had to be in Sao Paulo, and I could do whatever I wanted in between there. And then my next set of tickets were, so I got to London, then I had a Eurail pass. So I Eurailed around Western Europe. Then from Western Europe, I got another set of tickets, which was, I called back to the travel agent and I was like, listen, I have a trip planned. And I did this all by myself. I backpacked. But when I did Africa, that was the only piece I did on an organized tour group. Mm-hmm. So I called the travel agent. I was like, listen, I need to pick up the trip in Nairobi on X day, but I have a Eurail pass. So it doesn't matter where I fly out of. Just get me like a good ticket or whatever. And I'll just, get myself to the airport. Doesn't matter which country. And he said, well, where are you now? And I said, it doesn't matter. I was like, I have a Eurail pass. Like, truly, I said, it doesn't matter. He's like, okay, Carol. So my next grouping of tickets was London to Nairobi, and then Cape Town to New Zealand.
Wow.
Um,
What an amazing
yeah. Yeah.
trip.
And then I did New Zealand. Last ticket was New Zealand to, no, it was Australia to California. And then the last half of that ticket would have been California to London again, but I never used the last half of that ticket. And so I wound up doing South America. And I went north to south and then over to Brazil. And then from Brazil, I was in London, stayed in London. My brother came to visit me in London. He had all of my guidebooks with like my European guidebooks with him. And then he took all of my South American guidebooks, all my gifts back with him. And he's like, what am I, your international taxi service? And I was like,
Yes,
yes. I was like, I
exactly.
love you, but yes, that's exactly what you are. And he's like,
I was thinking like flying cabana boy, he's like there just getting all the things, making
you
sure.
know, really his role was to be my parents' eyes and ears.
Right.
That's really what his role was.
I love that.
Yeah, so then I did Western Europe. And when I was in Spain, I had two friends come visit me in Spain, back to back, but separate trips. So they came to visit me in Spain, and that was fun. And then went over to sub-Saharan Africa. So camped, like backpacked and camped. And by camp, I mean like pitching tents, like all
Right.
that good stuff. And like we would buy all of our food, we'd store it in the truck, we'd cook it. So much fun. Then when I got over to New Zealand, the trip in Africa was about 2 months. So the woman that I shared a tent with the first half of that trip lived in New Zealand. The woman I shared a
Oh,
tent with the second half lived in Australia. So when I got to New Zealand and Australia, I stayed with them for part of my time there. And really just got to see just sort of the everyday
right.
non-touristy stuff, which was very cool. Skipped the Great Barrier Reef, so I have to go back and do that. And instead, I went over to the west coast of Australia because that's where my friend was. And many tourists kind of skip that.
They do. Yeah.
So she is the reason I love wine. She's like into wine and actually has worked in the wine industry now for years. And so we went on a couple of cellar door tours and she really broke it down and explained it to me. And I was like, oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like that. Well, this is good.
Right.
So she really kind of helped me break that down. So we'll always love her for that. And then from there went to Fiji for a little bit.
Oh, fun.
Then I ended in Bali, which was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I got a driver in Bali whose name had been given to me, I don't know, by some traveler that I had met somewhere
Right.
along the way. And he spent like 2 weeks just kind of driving me around and seeing stuff.
I mean, what did traveling alone like that? I mean, how did that make you grow? I mean, make you fearful? I can only imagine a range of emotions.
You know what? I had already studied abroad in Spain. And even though I was in college, I didn't know anybody who was going to be on my trip.
Oh,
So I had already experienced getting on a plane
right,
and going to a foreign country and not knowing anybody
right.
and just having to just kind of make it work. And
Just
I had
wing
done
it.
this. Yeah, I had done the same thing in Mexico. Like I got on the plane, I didn't know anybody and I just had to make it work. And so it was bigger,
Oh, yeah,
certainly, but I knew I could always just get on a plane and go home.
right.
So there was never a day where I felt stuck. There was
Right.
never a day when I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was like, well, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to put some clothes on. I'm going to get my guidebook and I'm going to go see some stuff, So I
Right.
spent most days just walking around different cities and going to museums and botanical gardens and just relaxing,
That's
honestly, and
amazing.
meeting a ton of people. That's the thing when you go by yourself. Backpackers in general are really friendly folks.
Oh, yeah, very.
Super, super friendly. But when you go by yourself, you meet other people because you're not just talking with someone
Totally.
that you already know and you're already traveling with. So I met a ton of people. You know, I met a woman in Zurich. No, I met her in Rotterdam. She was there for her father's funeral, actually. She was helping do her father's funeral arrangements, but she lived in Zurich. And she's like, well, when you hit Zurich, just email me and then you can stay at my place. There's no reason for you to, you know, like get a hostel and all that stuff. And I was like, sure. Like listen, if I meet someone in LA or, you know, San Francisco or Philly, like I'm not staying at your house when I get to no, we don't, that's not an American thing. Like
It's
we just
not.
don't do that. Right. But for some reason you put me in a foreign country and strap a backpack on, I'm like, sure, I'll stay at your place. Not a problem.
I
And,
do think it's kind of a Southern thing, though. I mean, I do think in the South, we tend to be much more,
yeah.
people, you'll invite people over more
Mhm.
though dinner. I find it's not as much about, staying, but I mean, here in Washington, no, you would not do that. Like you would
Yeah.
not go stay randomly with somebody. People
Ever.
would think you're a little nutty.
Mhm.
Like,
But yeah, but as a backpacker, it is 100%
I
normal.
love that. That is
And so
amazing.
yeah, and I did that quite a bit.
Did you like journal about this, or what
Oh
did you
yeah.
do to kind of really capture? I mean, that's a year of your life that's profound.
I have volumes of journals.
That's awesome.
Volumes of journals. Like I knew I would need journals. So I thought at the beginning before I left, I thought, well, I'll take 2 journals with me, like small journals, and I'll leave 2 with my brother, and that should be plenty. Whatever. Like whatever. So and I just dip into like, stores here and there and I'd buy
Right.
something or, whatever. But yeah, I still have them and I
Oh, I bet.
still think they're amazing. And some days I read them and I'm like, gosh, did I really just quit my very nice big firm job and strap on a backpack? I did. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I did. Like, but it to me it just seems so normal at the time.
Well, it's so powerful. I mean, it is such a unique yet powerful thing to do, I
Yeah,
think, in your
yeah.
career. And I would think it has helped you with your immigration practice immensely.
It is one of the things that I can point to that helps me build rapport with my clients.
Oh, yeah.
In some cases, I know the cities where they're coming from,
Right.
or I know the cities where they've got to go to the consulate. Um, I had to go into a couple of US consulates along the way for stuff. I also had to get my own visas along the
Right.
way to get into other countries. And I remember one visa. Remember when I was getting my visa for Brazil? He he gave me they gave me the application. It was in Portuguese, and I was like, all
Uh,
right, I don't get this, but that's fine. I'll just kind of sort my way through it. Like I know enough Spanish, right? And so he's like, half of these questions are blank, ma'am. And I was like, okay, first of all, you speak English. Okay, that's good. I was like, second of all, I
you
was like, you gave me the
translate.
application in Portuguese. He's like, well, why didn't you say something? I was like, I'm not trying to rock the boat because I had spent years telling my client, like,
Exactly.
don't like that is not the place to make a stand. That's not the place to rock the boat. Like you just work with it, right? And he's like, well, we have it in English. And I was like, are you really gonna make me fill this whole thing out again? He's like, no.
Oh my God, I love that.
And then he said to me, he's like, okay, so you know what day you're leaving Brazil, but you don't know what day you want to enter. And I said, well, I'll enter whenever you give me the visa. And I literally just had this out of body experience. And I was like, was literally like watching this whole interaction. And I was like, you tell your clients every day not to do this nonsense. Every day you tell your clients, don't you dare get a plane ticket when you don't have the visa in hand, because if the visa gets denied, like, yeah, like everything that I would tell them. And here I was like, well, no, like, I don't like whenever you give me the visa, he goes, but what if I don't give you the visa? I said, then I guess I got to get a new plane ticket and all this stuff. And he just looked at me and he goes, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm backpacking. I was like, literally, I've turned my brain off. I am just backpacking. I was like, see, I got my guide, I showed him my guidebook. And
Right.
he's like, Okay. He's like, approved. Just go. Like Visa in there was just like, I can't. He's like, there's no way you're up to anything crazy. Like, and I was like, no, I literally have just turned my brain off for a year. That's what you're saying here. And he's like, okay. But I mean, literally, like I tell my clients, I'm like, no, you cannot end your apartment lease. You cannot quit your job. You cannot give notice. You cannot whisper to your best friend at work. Nothing. Like every day is normal. And here I am, like, I don't know what day. I don't know. I don't know. Of course, I already have my plane ticket. And he just looked at me like, but I know, but not one time, not 1 second did I think he's not going to give me this visa.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and he certainly could have said, ma'am, no.
No.
But the universe knew that I had to get to London
Right. Exactly.
because my brother was going to be there. And
With your new guidebooks.
Right. Like he had my guidebooks and I was on $65 a day, and to not get the visa would have totally destroyed my budget. So I was like, no, it's just going to happen.
I
Just-
love that. I
it's
just
just
think
gonna
this is the
happen.
most amazing.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. It's so powerful to me and brave. I mean, I've never imagined traveling solo like that. I can't even picture what that would look like.
It was so amazing, but so relaxing the whole time. And I am super, super type A. I'm super type A, but I think even in my type A-ness, I had planned to just be flexible.
Right.
You know, I had just planned to be flexible. And I knew that there were going to be locations where I was going to have to be like really, really flexible.
Right.
You know, like when they said, well, you know, and I was like, there are some countries and I was like, well, I want to go to this city just for the day and then come back. And like, how do I do that? And the, you know, the folks at the house would be like, okay, well, you go and you walk down maybe a block, maybe 2, maybe 3, you'll see a bus, flag it down and they'll take you there. And I was like, is there a bus station? Is there a bus stop? And they're like, no, you just go a little bit down the road and you'll see a bus. And I was like, okay. And the first time I did it, I was like, man, my mother gave me such very clear instructions. She was like, if you come back in a body bag, she was like, I will bring you back. I will yell at you. She said, I will kill you. And then I will send you back from wherever you came from. Like her instructions were so very, very clear. And I thought, well, this whole like maybe 2, maybe 3 blocks thing, it's just going to have to work. And towards the end of my stay, like in South America, I was like, I was telling other backpackers, I was like, I know it sounds bizarre, but you just kind of have to start walking in this general direction because that's the general direction of where you're trying to go. And a bus will come by. And then you pay. I was like, you get on at the back of the bus and then you pass your money forward. And they were like, what? I was like, I know it sounds crazy. You pass your money forward and then your change comes back.
No way.
I swear to you. And the first time I was like, all right, I'm going to bring small change, coins, whatever. Because in the US, that change is not coming back.
It's not coming back.
That change is not coming back.
People be like, cool, I got myself a little
right. I'm telling you, in South America, that change comes back exact.
Amazing.
And I was like, I know this. I know this is just going to defy everything you've ever thought, but it works. And you'll get there and you'll have a very good time. And then you'll just do the same thing coming back. And they were like, all right. And I was like, trust me, I swear to you, it works.
That is wild. I mean, but you have to be very flexible. I mean, very trusting.
But I had planned on it though.
Yeah. Of course, as a type A person, you had planned on your flexibility.
I had to plan to be flexible. But that's the thing. Like I had to plan on it. I had to say to myself, you just have to be flexible. You just, and you know, and part of it was that I had spent a significant amount of time in Mexico. where I had to be flexible, you know, where it's just it's a different culture. It's a different atmosphere, and people are not as uptight and crazy and like, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, as they are here in the States. And so, you know, when I say, well, where's the best station? They're like, oh, honey, that is so cute. That is
We
so
don't
cute. We
do
don't
that.
work like that. We don't work like that. Or, you know, you get to a bus station or a bus stop, like in the States, like you're used to being like, okay, and so the next bus comes at 4:15 and no, no, it comes around there. And I realized why it was so like around is because there were maybe like 5 official stops, right? But
Oh,
if
but
they
they
saw somebody like me, like on
walking.
the way, they would stop, they would pick you up, they would ask you where you were going, they would make sure that you were on the right bus. The guy that took the money would tell the bus driver, hey, we just got to kind of swing by and drop her off here. But that wasn't just for me, it was for anybody, you know. And so that
Wow.
gets back to this sense of community,
Right.
where like if we see someone, like we're just, you know, and they hail us down, like we're not just going to blow by them, because in the States you just get blown by,
Well,
right?
people like are running after buses in the States. I mean,
Right.
you know what I mean? And drivers see
Yeah.
them and leave.
Yeah, but no, this is
Oh my gosh.
and you know, and then I took some overnight buses with chickens and dogs and other sort of animals. And you know, I remember this one stop, we were on some dirt road in the middle of the night, and he just stopped, got out, went to his friend's house, came back, you know, hanging out. I was like, what are we doing? Nobody got on, nobody got off. I guess he just needed to go and check on a friend. I was like, what else? Because my thing is, I'm not in a hurry. Like, where am I going?
Well, right.
Like, the museum's gonna be there. My hostel knows how this all works. So when I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna get on the 4:15 bus, they're like, okay, we'll see you at midnight. I was like, midnight? It says the ride's only 2 hours. They're like, we'll see you when you get here. Don't worry. You know, so I was like, all right, got this covered. But yeah.
Wow. I mean, coming back though to the United States had to have been a bit of a shock because it is, that is not how we roll.
It is. It, so I left a bunch of my stuff, like all up and down the East Coast. like like there was some stuff at my brother's house. There was stuff. So I think my professor and his wife had my computer and my printer, and like my parents had some stuff. And so, you know, I left just various
Right.
stuff. And so I finally like went, because I flew into California, then I traversed the country after I stayed with 2 different friends in California.
Right.
Finally got over to the East Coast, and I, was like picking up all my stuff going down the coast or whatever. And I was like, my God, you just have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I landed in Miami. That's where my job was, or, I wound up getting a job in Miami. I landed in Miami, and I had spent a little over a year living in hostels. And so I call my brother, and he's like, why do you have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment? And I was like, hold on. I said, I have spent the last year and some change of my life living in hostels and bunk beds,
Right.
And being in a double was a luxury, right? And I said, I'm only doing this for a year, but I need this space. Like, I just physically and
Totally.
emotionally need this space. And he was like, okay, that I get. But I remember unpacking my clothes, clothes that I hadn't seen for a year, because I had one backpack of stuff and not a whole lot of clothes were in there, right? And I remember unpacking, and there were tags still on things that I hadn't worn well before I left. And I just thought, this is excess. And I understood from an academic perspective,
Right.
when other countries would say the US is just all about excess and there's really no need for all that. I didn't understand it from my very own personal perspective,
Right.
until I unpacked my closet.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, because I have just spent the best year of my life, the happiest I have ever been. And I wasn't unhappy when I went on my trip. I was not unhappy at all. I was 100% happy. But the best year of my life, with quite literally 3 shirts
Right.
to my backpack, you know, and I have an entire closet full of stuff that
Yep.
I just don't need. And then, of course, I looked at the fact that I had 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I was living by myself, and it was just so extra. And then the other place it really kicked in for me when I got back was when I went out to eat.
Mm,
The portion sizes
right.
were outrageous, outrageous compared to what I had just been getting around the world, like quite literally around, like nobody had portion sizes the way that we do at that point.
Interesting. Yeah.
Nobody. And I lost so much weight. Like I bought 1 new pair of pants from Old Navy, which I loved. Oh my God, I loved them when I left. And by the time I got back, I could take those pants on and off without unbuttoning them and without unzipping them. I had lost that much weight. And I was not dieting. I was not trying to lose weight, but I was walking every day.
Right.
And the portion sizes were smaller. Like I remember the first 2 months, I went to bed hungry thinking about breakfast because just the portion sizes. I was like, what is this? Like, are y'all hungry? Like, I'm hungry. And I was like, y'all, like, I can't hang out. Like, I gotta go to bed. Like, I am hungry and I'm on a $65 a day budget. So
I gotta get to tomorrow.
Right? Like if I get another entree today, like that cuts into my tomorrow money. That's not okay. I was like, so I gotta go to bed. Like I gotta go to bed.
I love that. What an amazing opportunity. I mean, oh, I could listen to your trip around the world forever. I mean,
It was
that is
fun.
just, oh, it's wild.
It was
I'm
fun.
so grateful that you shared that with us.
Fun.
I think so many people, don't you think now post-pandemic, people are gonna do some things like we're gonna see people who, are kind of feeling stir crazy and wanting to get out and
I hope so. I hope that people have I think and I hope that we as a country and as a world reevaluate what we really find to be important.
I do too. It's exactly what I hope.
And it's not, for me, it's not sort of the work like 24/7. And yes, I absolutely work a lot. Like we all work a lot. But I really hope that we really evaluate what's important. And in our last week of life, will we have a backpacking trip to look back on? Will we have like the amazing views behind you to look back on and say, you know what, I just want to do something different.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think I really hope as a working country that we reevaluate how we perceive all of our professions. Because our first line workers, those folks that worked in grocery stores, those men and women who are commercial truck drivers, they kept us afloat.
Absolutely.
During the majority of last year. And our teachers and our firefighters, they were essentially in harm's way every day.
Every single day.
And I don't think before this, people really understood that and had an appreciation for it.
Right.
And I hope we do now. But yeah, and I hope people really think about what they want to do for themselves, because it's okay to be a little bit selfish. It's okay to take vacation. It's okay to quit your job and go around the world for a year.
Exactly.
Like the world doesn't end. Families don't crumble,
Right.
and it all works out and you become something different than when you left. You know, like I had this
That's
whole
so
epiphany.
powerful.
I had this whole epiphany when I was in Italy. I was like, and when my brother hears this, he'll totally laugh at me, but I was like, wow, like I am really usually like uber hyper and very type A normally. And I think it was just because I was so relaxed
Right.
when I got to Italy. And I was like, wow, I am really wound up tight normally. And now I'm just not as, I am still very type A. I will probably always be
Sure.
type A, right? But I'm not nearly as wound up as I was prior to that trip. And I think some of my, like, I have one client in particular, like he was like, well, Carol, I'm super worried about this. I'm super worried about this. What are we going to do? And what are we going to do? And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like, don't worry until I tell you you have something to worry about. I said, but I'm not worried. And he's like, well, how are you not worried? And we have this and this. And I was like, I get it. We have all of that to deal with. I said, but I have a plan. I
Right.
said, I have a plan. And I'm just, you just gotta work the plan with me. You just gotta work the plan with me. And he's like, okay. He's like, I always feel better when I talk to you. I said, I know. And then you go back and you start Googling. And he goes, I know. And you tell me not to Google, but I do it anyway. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay.
Like,
But I
call me
bring
again. Right.
that, I bring that calmness with me now,
Right.
you know, and I can tell them, you know, listen, like I've been to US consulates overseas.
Right.
It is an incredibly intimidating process to just get into the building. You are met with armed Marines.
I was
In
going to say, you have a
uniform.
lot of Marines looking at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And they are crisp and tight and packing all sorts of weapons that you can see. So I figure there are probably like 20 that I can't see, right? You know, and then
I do.
you're like, I have this little piece of paper and I'm really nervous just getting in the building, you know, but
Right.
like, and I tell them, I was like, that's what you're going to experience. I said, they're not going to point their weapon at you.
Right.
You'll be okay. I said, I just need you to understand the process of getting into the building.
Exactly.
You
Well, just
know?
getting over that. I mean, being able to,
Right.
I feel for people all the time trying to go to government buildings and navigate things. It's like, oh my gosh, do we
It's
have to
rough.
make this so complicated? Like,
Rough. Like I joked around, like when I was living in Atlanta and I was in the local office, the local immigration office quite a bit. Every single time I would get stopped, every single time that metal detector something would go off.
oh
And they're
yeah,
like, it's probably your shoes. And I was like, but these are my favorite comfy shoes. And they're like, we're just telling you it's probably your shoes. So I would make a joke of it. I was like, okay. I was like, you guys, you know, bring my arms out. And they were like, put your arms down. I'm like, that doesn't happen to get on the other side of the, metal detector. And I was like, okay. And they're like, all right, you went off, put your arms up. And I was like, listen, I was like, you guys, when I find that one outfit from head to toe that
totally.
doesn't go off, I was like, I'm wearing that every single time I come in here.
I
Best
found
believe it.
one. I found one that could get through the court here in King County without
Right?
beeping. And I was just like, this is my Supergirl outfit
Yeah.
that I can get into any building, no beep,
Yes.
no nothing.
That like when I'm standing there with my client and they're like so nervous, they're so wound up, you know, they look at me and they're like, my lawyer is a class clown. And I was like, I am. Yeah. Like, yeah, I am your class clown, but you're relaxed and you're laughing. And that's what I need. So if I need to be the
Exactly.
class clown going through security to get you to just, calm down a little bit,
Yep.
bring on the class clown, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. I think the class clown counts for a lot. I mean,
Yeah. And they're just like, and they like, it's like they relax. And the guards are like, really, counselor? Because I know that I need my ID. Like, I know this, but I'm always like digging in my bag. I'm like, oh,
oh
you
yeah.
guys. And one day I think I had like a charger and they're like, counselor, why? And I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to have this. And they were like, no. And I was like, well, can I just go put it in the car? I was like, but then do I have to wait in this long line? They're like, counselor. I was like, okay, I'll be back. I'll be back. And then I go through the gate and I was like, all right, now the gal made me strip down basically nothing. And they're like, counselor, really? And I was like, I'm just saying, I was like, half my clothes are in this bin, but
Oh,
the whole
it's
time,
a process.
but my clients are just like, yeah, you know, and they're so busy shaking their head at me.
Exactly.
They've ceased to worry. And I'm like, that's all I need. That's
It's-
all. And the guards just look at me like, you're a hot mess, girl. You're a hot mess. And I'm like, I am who I am.
It is what it is.
I am who I
Well, and
am.
I really appreciate you being with me today.
It's
I
been
cannot tell
fun.
you how much I have enjoyed this. Oh, I just love it. Well, we're going to have to just get on our own Zoom sometime.
I
so we
know,
can
right?
chat about, oh yeah, for sure. We got a lot to chat about. I really appreciate, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I, of course, get to go back to work with my banging, and we'll see how it goes. But hopefully everyone else will be as gracious as you.
But you have that view behind you. So, I
And
mean,
that is my peaceful,
right?
oh, it's amazing.
I
Yeah.
love your pictures on Facebook. Those are awesome.
Yeah. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy your week.
All right. You too, my dear. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.